What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Headline Show. We got another mock draft to react to today. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to Kevin O'Connor and the Ringer's most recent mock draft. We're going to have a bunch of fun. Before we get started, though, please do me a big favor and hit that like button down below and subscribe here to the channel. We are near our 1,000 subscriber goal here for the channel, so really appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe. If you want to as well, turn on post notifications. We got a bunch of great content on the way. Gonna have my first mock draft dropping next week and a bunch of other great draft content. NBA contests, the playoffs move forward, film breakdowns, 2K. I mean, just a bunch of stuff coming to the channel, so make sure you guys do subscribe. But Kevin O'Connor and the Ringer has a mock draft, so let's get into it. First overall pick, the Detroit Pistons. He ends up taking Zachary Reichardt. I like the fit a lot. He gets compared to guys like Michael Porter Jr. a ton. In a draft class where this is so much about fit, if the Pistons do end up with the number one overall pick, you already have Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duran. Go in and add a natural floor spacing wing that still has a lot of upside, and this does make a ton of sense. You don't really want to get a guy that can't shoot the ball. I think this team really needs some added floor spacing. Again, he gets comped a lot of times to Michael Porter Jr., so this does make a ton of sense. Next up, Alex Sarr to the Washington Wizards. Yep, makes a ton of sense. As soon as the Wizards traded Daniel Gafford and made all the moves they made recently, this just is a plug-and-play fit. You want to talk about comps, he gets comped to Jaren Jackson Jr. a ton. He can shoot the three, a little bit step out and shoot, but this is the guy that should, realistically be able to come in and be a really good defender. 6'11" with a 7'4" wingspan. He is just a freak. So I like that pick a lot for them. Next up, San Antonio Spurs. He ends up taking Nikola Topic. This is a big deal for me. I think I broke down the top 10 guards, in my opinion, in this draft class in a recent video, so I'll put the link up here where you guys should go check it out. Because, man, look, Nikola Topic is the perfect fit for what Victor Wembanyama. You talk about a guy that is day one, going to be their starting point guard. One of the best, if not the best playmaker in this draft class. For such a young player who's 18 years old, and typically with young guards like Nikola Topic, they're I don't want to say afraid of contact, but they like to avoid contact at the rim a little bit too much. Maybe it's because they're not fully developed with their frame and things like that. Nikola Topic embraces contact. He is such a freaking good finisher at the rim. It's ridiculous. And, I mean, you give Wemby a natural point guard who it does have the most elite shot yet, but I don't think it's broken. You put him in this situation, Victor and Topic ball screens are going to be unstoppable. I love it. Next up, you got Cody Williams going to the Charlotte Hornets. You've seen Cody Williams' stock drop a little bit recently, but I think you got to evaluate the situation where he was really dealing with injury. He came back a little too early, in my opinion, and I still think you have to buy into the upside. He has such great the shot creation ability really needs to develop. But you want to talk about defense? Cody Williams is one of the best wing perimeter defenders in this draft class, and you now pair him next to with your wing core next to a Brandon Miller. You have LaMelo Ball, you have Nick Richards, Mark Williams. You're starting to build a really nice core down there in Charlotte, and Cody Williams makes a ton of sense. He's the next player up on my draft eval, so I am really excited to dive into Cody Williams' film. The Portland Trailblazers take Ron Holland, and I think like Kevin O'Connor says here, it could be a little bit scary for them, and they might sway away from going back into the G League Ignite for another draft prospect. But I mean, man, Ron Holland, you kind of have to just take it. He is a raw prospect, but he is such a freaking explosive athlete with legitimate upside. And we could very easily walk away from this draft to look back in a few years from now and say Ron Holland was the best player from this draft. I still think he has that high potential. He's just to make sure I was reading that right. He's 6'8", really freak athlete, and I think this does make a ton of sense for the Portland Trailblazers. I'm not going guard with Portland, so I think it's really just take whoever the best wing is in that position, because I think it's a little too high to go big right now, and I think your guard rotation's set. You have Scoot, you have Anthony Simons, you have Shannon Sharp. I'm not going guard. I think going with Ron Holland or a wing is the correct move here. Toronto, he has him taking Modest Buzelis here, which would be an interesting pick. I think, granted, the way that, the Raptors play offensively, I think Miles Buzelis could be a guy that does come in and make a ton of sense for them. Talk about a guy that can really create and be another point forward alongside Scotty Barnes and have some two-way upside. So I don't mind the pick. I think there's a couple of different options you could have went. Given the board, like Reed Sheppard makes a ton of sense right here. I might have went with Reed Sheppard personally, but I don't mind the pick at all for the Raptors here at 6. The Memphis Grizzlies take Donovan Clingan at 7, and I understand and I get it. He's had a insanely good run recently. I think this might be a little bit too high for my liking for Donovan Clingan as of right now here at 7. I do like the fit though, and again, if we are talking about drafting for fit, this does make a ton of sense. You have another big that the one is a plus on the defensive end of the floor, but also has some more offensive versatility too, to where you can legitimately run lineups out there with Donovan Clingan and with Jaren Jackson Jr. You already have your guards set. You have Ja coming back, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard. Your wings, there's some promising wings you have on this roster, most specifically GD Jackson. So I don't know. I've kind of talked myself into this pick. I still think it's a little bit high to where I might even consider trading back to 10 and maybe adding some more draft stock going forward in the future. But Donovan Clingan, fit wise, I like it. I think it's a little bit early, but I think if you're drafting for fit here, it makes a ton of sense. The Houston Rockets take Stephon Castle here at 8. I mean, if you want to talk about versatility and defense, that's Stephon Castle here for the Houston Rockets. I think he has more offensive upside. I think he's shown it at UConn. And I mean, they're potentially on a run to repeat as national champions. So obviously he has championship pedigree. He's the best defensive guard in this draft class. His recovery speed is ridiculous. He flashes the athleticism really nicely on the defensive side of the floor. I'm a huge fan of Stephon Castle, and I'm envisioning lineups where it's you can run Castle, Amin Thompson, and Jalen Green all together, Jabari Smith, and then Alfred Sengun. That does make a ton of sense. 5 guys that are super, super versatile that can play a bunch of different roles. Stephon Castle could be an off-ball player next to Amin and next to Jalen Green. I maybe think about more of a Reed Sheppard here. I think of a guy next to Amin Thompson more specifically that you maybe want more a guy that can space the floor a little bit more. But I do like the player a lot. And speaking of Reed Sheppard, he goes to Utah, and you want to talk about fit? This is fit. Reed Sheppard going to Utah. You pair him next to Keontae George in the backcourt. You have Lauri Markkanen still. He's going to make so much sense into head coach Will Hardy's system. So I do like Reed Sheppard a ton. I think outside Nikola Topic, I think he's the next best playmaker in this draft class. His processing speed for being a freshman at Kentucky, his processing speed in terms of how to read a defense, where he gets to pick and choose his spots out on the floor are incredible. I'm a big freaking fan of Reed Sheppard. He's the number 2 guard on my list. Go check out my video again. Once again, my top 10 guards in this draft class. But Reed Sheppard is a stud. I think this makes some sense. So here's where I'm going to sound like a hater, because if you guys know, and you guys have been paying attention and following along, and again, going back to that draft video I did, Jacoby Walter here at 10. I don't love it. Again, going back to fit, I guess I could kind of talk myself into it a little bit more, especially if you're going to keep Trey and DeJounte together. I think this is a guy that I buy the two-way upside personally. I know he really struggled on the defensive end at the beginning of the year, but I buy the two-way upside. I think he is one of the better shooters in this draft class. I don't buy the athleticism personally. I don't buy the shot creation ability, which I think some people do, where you do see him often get comped to guys like Chris Middleton, which if you view him as Chris Middleton, then this pick is way more justified in my opinion, but I don't know. I think you're probably a little bummed out that you couldn't get Donovan Clingan at 10, because I think that also makes a ton of sense. So you really let Clint Capella be on his way and kind of push him out the door. But I don't know. Jacoby Walters is a good player. This is a bit rich for me personally. And then next up, you have Rob Dillingham falling to 11. At this point, I honestly would just consider trading up if I'm one of these other teams, because Rob Dillingham falling to 11 is kind of insane. I don't like the pick, and this is probably one of the very few picks so far where I am firmly no, don't like it, because I don't understand Chicago. Like, all these mocks have Chicago just drafting a guard, whether it's Isaiah Collier. This is the first time I've seen Rob Dillingham get mocked to Chicago. Unless, like, there is inside intel that, hey, look, Zach LaVine's on the way out. They have Zach LaVine. They have Javon Carter. They have Ayo DeSomo. They have Kobe White, who's broken out this season. They have Zach, Alex Caruso. That's 5 guards. Go wing. Go, hell, even if you think it's a reach, take Don't Connect here at 11. Like, I do not like this pick. Rob's a great player, so I don't want to, like, detract from Rob's abilities. But man, he's not a good defender either. I really don't like the pick here for Chicago. You're just crowding your room even more, and really, like, makes it obvious that, like, hey, you kind of have to trade some of these dudes now. Buy into Kobe, unless you're just saying again, hey, look, we're gonna trade Alex Caruso, we're gonna trade Javon Carter, we're gonna trade Zach LaVine. You're trading all those dudes, and sure, but as of right now, I just don't buy this pick a ton. I don't like that pick. OKC takes Zach Edey. Again, this is kind of a reach. I don't see I think when you're drafting big for OKC, I would like to see some playability with Chet and the big. I don't quite know how Zach Edey's really gonna fit with OKC. I think as a backup big, sure. I think it adds some pop there and just adds some more physicality to that team. I don't know. I'm really interested. Again, this is another team where I'm really hoping like a Donovan Clingan can fall right here. But Zach Edey, second pick off the board. Don't hate it. Second big off the board. I like this a lot more than like the Rob Dillingham pick, although I still think this is a bit high for Zach Edey. Next up here, you got the Portland Trailblazers, who picked, remind me again, I want to say it was Ron Holland. Yep, it was. Why not take another swing on another wing, this time from overseas, to Don Saloon here. Very much definitely a raw prospect, but I mean, he definitely has a two-way upside. He's 6'9", 7'1" wingspan. Admittedly, I haven't watched a ton of his film yet. I need to dive into him a bit more before I can give you a more in detail analysis on him as a player. He's been a massive riser on big boards throughout the process, especially over the last couple of weeks. So I like the pick. Two-way upside that is still raw, but I think kind of matches your timeline, as I do think the Blazers, are at least another year away. Next up, I love this pick. Maybe because I'm just a Jared McCain stan, but the New Orleans Pelicans, he has them taking Jared McCain here out of Duke. Look, I think this is a perfect fit for Jared McCain here, going to New Orleans, where he'll be able to play right away. I think just because of the shooting ability and how he competes defensively. He is a smart guard, yes, but just how he competes, how smart of a player he is, I think we'll be able to keep him on the floor. He has more playmaking ability that I think he's able to show right now at Duke. He isn't the most athletic guy. He isn't this insane like shot creator, especially in the mid-range area, but he's a good finisher. The playmaking upside's there. He's one of the best three-point shooters in this draft class. Smart player. I like this a ton. He should be able to contribute right away for the Pelicans. Next up, Tristan Del Silva for the from Colorado here for the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a guy that is just a good player. He's just a good player. Philly needs more young, good players on that team. They can play a multitude of different roles. You have him on this team, as Philly is kind of going to be, they're not rebuilding, but like Philly, I mean, kind of roster-wise, you kind of view it in that way because they have so much cap space. They have some draft capital here. Give me a top 15 pick and be able to pick up a guy like Tristan. I do like this pickup a lot. I would have maybe went big because I really do think Philly, and this goes back to the last mock draft we reacted to. I want to say it was Sam Vecini's mock, where he had them taking a big. I was much more of a fan of that one because I think they really need to solidify that backup big spot for Embiid, where it's kind of this revolving door right now. You get a more solidified, stable option back there behind Embiid. So maybe you'll take like a Kyle Filipowski here at 15, but Tristan Silva is definitely a really, really good player. Okay, the next up, the Miami takes Devin Carter out of Providence, and and Kevin O'Connor does say here, he does feel like a Heat culture player. And maybe this is me just not buying in and not kind of to the sense where I wasn't the biggest fan of the Jaime Jaquez pick last season, but this is rich for me. I had a very late first to an early second round comp for Devin Carter. Again, go watch my top 10 draft guards video where I do break that down. And Devin Carter, I think why Kevin O'Connor says he is kind of a Heat culture guy. He plays his ass off defensively. He is a good three-point shooter. I think the finishing ability is there. I do like Devin Carter. I just think 2 picks outside the lottery, I would have taken a chance on another player or two. But again, Heat culture guy probably, and this does feel like a pick that he would make. So, hey. 17, the Raptors walk away with Isaiah Collier. And if this is the case, oh my God, the Raptors might have just stole the draft. You get Miles Buzelis at 6, and then you walk away with Isaiah Collier, who I have a lottery grade on Isaiah Collier. He is just he has his running back type build, which is really, really weird. Where from the waist down, let Isaiah Collier get a full head of steam and let him get off of 2 feet at the rim. It's almost over for you. I want to say got some stats from my buddy Eugene. I'll put his Twitter link down in the description down below. He finishes 68% at the rim off of 2 feet, which is ridiculous. You put him into the system where he has legitimate upside to be a lead ball handler in an offense, be able to operate out of pick and rolls. The off-ball fit is very limited, so there are some question marks about that, and also just question marks about his defense. But this is definitely a gamble that I'm willing to take if I'm Toronto, if he's still here at 17, because he has he was a top 5 projected pick heading into the season, so he still is a very talented player. He really, really struggled. The playmaking, just the decision-making at the beginning of the year wasn't there, but he got back from injury, really flipped the switch, and I think this is a home run pick for the Raptors here at 17. Next up, the Phoenix Suns are going to take Kel'el Ware from Indiana, who is a really up and down player, depending on how you view him. And you look at a lot of popular big boards. I think this more or less just addresses a need for Phoenix, where you go get a backup big. I think the shot blocking ability that he offers is really enticing for Phoenix and for Frank Vogel, who is a defensive-minded coach. So I can very easily see them go this direction. Next, we have the Orlando Magic taking Don Connect. And you want to talk about fits. This just fits so perfectly for Orlando and kind of where they're at on the timeline. They're not a good three-point shooting team. You immediately add a versatile offensive player that can create for himself as well, that can add depth to that bench rotation and just shoot the shit out of the ball, quite frankly. So I love this pick for Orlando. Dalton Connect was kind of getting some more lottery pick hype. I'm curious if a good remainder of the tournament can increase that, but it'll be really, really interesting to see. All right, number 20, the Atlanta Hawks are going to take Yves Messi out of Baylor. This is a big I really, really do like, and this kind of corrects what I was saying earlier. We go all the way back up to the Atlanta Hawks, where they picked at 10, take Jacoby Walter, you take his teammate, Yves Messi. And again, I think you can say, yeah, we're going to see Clint Capella on his way out, and this is a guy that makes a ton of sense. I think Messi will come in, be able to play right away as a backup big, and I think his chemistry with Trae Young in pick and rolls is going to be really, really fun. Has some defensive upside as well. I think this is a really, really good fit, and another player that I'm really, really excited to dive into his tape. Number 21, got Kevin McCullough Jr. going to the New York Knicks. That's a really, really interesting fit. He did struggle from 3 down the stretch of the season, and he does have some injury question marks, but he has perfect two-way upside that can fit nicely for what Coach Tom Thibodeau wants to do in New York. And then they pick right back to back. They go Oso Ighodaro. I suck with names, so I'm gonna have to make sure I get that one right. But the Knicks do have some question marks with their front court going forward. They have a couple of free agent decisions. You have Isaiah Hartenstein being a free agent this year, and also he has some playmaking upside in terms of being able to like be a comfortable passer within an offense. His connection with Tyler Collect is really, really fun. So I like that pick a ton. This pick I love. Tyler Smith from G League Ignite going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just the floor spacing ability to where like they can run some really, really cool lineups with like him and Evan Mobley. Plus, like you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, presuming that they both come back, or even him and Jared Allen. I think that can fit nicely, and also the defensive upside as well. I do like this pick a ton for the Cavs. Keyshawn George from Miami, who Miami had a really, really rough season, but he was the lone bright spot of that team, who is a really, really good shooter on and off the ball, has some playmaking upside, some versatility on that end as well, on both ends potentially as well. So you add him into the mix. You have now him. You have Denny Avdia, bring him back, Kyle Kuzma. I think you would have maybe went guard, and maybe that's something the Wizards need to consider because I don't know what the plan is with the guards rotation going forward. But Keyshawn George is a fun player that has legitimate upside. The New Orleans Pelicans here, they're going to stick with the Duke, the Blue Devils, if you will, and they're going to take Kyle Filipowski from Duke, 7-foot center that I think can be a really, really nice, backup for Valanciunas and eventually take over the role. Some of the tape does get really, really rough with Filipowski, but the highs are really, really high. So you need to really just get him in there and really like develop him. And I do like the pick a ton. All right, next up here, the Milwaukee Bucks are going to take Deron Holmes out of Dayton. He is a little undersized. He is 6'9", but 7'1" wingspan. That is a really, really good rim finisher. Has some defensive upside. I think this makes a ton of sense. Also has some switchability to which I really think this Bucks defense needs a little bit more of. It's just more versatility and verticality on the offensive end. Deron Holmes, he's improved as a shooter. How much do you buy into that? That's something to keep an eye on for sure. Then you have Carlton or Bub Carrington here from Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know how legit this is. I do believe he just kind of confirmed he's going back to Pittsburgh for another year, which I think could, be a really, really, really important thing for him. But if he does declare, and he does declare for the NBA draft, then this does make a ton of sense for Minnesota. You bring him in. He's a really good scorer that likes to just, he's a score first guard, right? But he has playmaking ability and upside. You pair him next to Mike Conley. Let him learn from Mike Conley. I think he is still a kind of a raw prospect. He is still really, really young. He's only an 18-year-old kid. I think going to Minnesota could be really, really beneficial for Bub Carrington. Next up, the Utah Jazz. Again, in a draft where it's all about fit, Colin Murray-Boyles, who I think can be a guy that we start talking about a lot more, closer towards the 20s. This is so fun for Utah. Has real defensive upside. I like the playmaking ability and his ability to, really quick, let's see what Kevin O'Connor says. Just best defenders in the draft, really switchable guy. But right here, and this is what I buy into. I'm just going to read this little blurb from Kevin O'Connor. Post playmaking hub in college who displays the field to make good decisions and accurate passes from all areas and angles on the floor. That in the modern NBA is so freaking valuable. A la Draymond Green. Like that's just so valuable. You put them in that offense where they just space the floor so perfectly. They run a lot of the off-ball actions. They will see Sacramento, Golden State, maybe even not Denver necessarily, but he will really flourish in this system. Plus the defensive upside. I love this pick and tell. One of my favorite picks, honestly, of the draft, of this mock draft. You have Colin Murray-Boyles and Reed Shepherd. Utah is really starting to put some things together there for their rebuild, if you will. Jalen Bridges to Denver. Why not? Right, a really good role player that's going to come in right away. Experienced guy, so you don't have to worry about any rawness necessarily. He'll be 23 years old, so this does make a lot of sense. Denver needs the guys that can come in and play right away. I like the pick for Denver. And then Johnny Furphy, who falls a lot. I've seen mock drafts where Johnny Furphy was being picked near lottery, if not in the lottery, and the fall from grace, if you will, he falls to 30. There's a lot of talk about Johnny Furphy returning back to the draft. Returning back to Kansas, what could be very much so beneficial for him. Given just the ranking here, but a really, really good shooter, a really, really good scorer of the basketball too, who is a smart player playing in Kansas, obviously. And I think Boston really, really benefit from taking a guy like a Johnny Furphy, who, if you're Boston and you're kind of just going upside swing anyway, this is a home run. You are elated to have Johnny Furphy here at 30. We're just going to blow through the second round here. Look at some notable names. Bobby Klitman going here to Toronto, which is, I love that. Terrence Shannon to Utah. Tyler Collect to Portland. So, I mean, if you look at Portland's draft, Portland ends up with Tyler Collect. I could have sworn they had another pick. Tyler Collect to Don Saloon, and then they wound up with Ron Holland in the top 5. Tyler Collect, very plug-and-play backup guard, smart player. I love that pick a ton for Portland. You have Ryan Dunn to Indiana. This is such a good pick. Worst case scenario, he ends up as a Matisse style. Like, it's about the shot. Can the shot translate and come around? That's really, really interesting there. I like that pick a lot for Indiana. They really struggle on the defensive side of the floor right now. Jalen Tyson. This is probably maybe the highest I've seen Jalen Tyson go in mock drafts. And I don't know how I feel about Jalen Tyson. I do have a second round grade on him. I don't know if he's a top 40 player yet. I don't have a full like in-depth big board yet. But I don't know. I like the scoring ability. He is a natural scorer. He reminds me a little bit of like Norman Powell in some ways in terms of how he scores on the offensive side of the floor. So I think this is an interesting pick, a pretty high upside play for Minnesota. Alex Caravan to New York. Upside play here with Justin Edwards here to Portland. KJ Simpson to Philly. I like it. I still really would have just went big. I don't like, the one thing I don't like about this for Philly, I don't like them ignoring the big spot. I really think they need to address the big spot. Hunter Salas, I like this a ton for Charlotte. Got Dylan Jones, who could be a first-round play, goes to Houston at 43. Trevon Brazile out of Arkansas for Miami. Dylan Mitchell to San Antonio. Kwame Evans, the freshman. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he went back, but he goes to Washington. DJ Wagner to Detroit. I mean, why not? Tyrese Proctor to Philadelphia too. So again, do you just take a big if I'm Philly at 41? I don't like how Kevin O'Connor addressed this draft for Philly. I do like still some of the upside that Tyrese Proctor shows at times. Dembona for the Lakers. Caleb Foster, freshman for Golden State. Baba Miller for Denver. Cam Jones, who's a fun player. So, yeah, this was a really interesting mock draft. I can't wait to get into my mock draft next week. It's only going to be a one-round mock draft. Haven't spent as much time as like Kevin O'Connor has and some of these other draft experts have to be able to do a 2-round mock draft. But I do really, really feel comfortable about where I'll be at next weekend when the mock draft drops. So thank you guys so much for tuning in here to this video. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video and subscribe here to the channel. Like I said, more film breakdowns coming, more draft content coming, just a bunch of stuff. We're going to be overloading you guys with content. So make sure you guys subscribe, hit a like on the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.